All right, so we're going to go through this. Some of these we're going to go through quickly. Some of them we're going to skip over. And the slides we skip over, as we mentioned, they'll be available. And Nick will be available tomorrow for folks that have questions. And so I would encourage that. The other thing is that we will be, we have a session at NUAC on day 2 in the afternoon. So we'll be talking about some of this again if you're interested. So we're going to talk right now about how to use data and the difference between performance management and performance measurement. Performance measures are how you measure things going on. Performance management is how you use that data. There's a difference. Producing, collecting, reporting data is performance measurement. Using the data to change your program, make it better, help more clients, that's performance management. And what the performance measures and all of the other information that you're collecting do is give you a foundation for making performance management happen. So we talk a lot about logic models. All of you have probably been logic modeled to death, but all of this work that we're doing and all the work that you've been doing is really based on that. So think about the fact that you're looking at inputs. I'm actually going to skip ahead. Inputs, you're reporting in your grantee survey. Actually, before that, even the problem statement and how you're going to address that is in your state plan. And by the way, section 16 of your state plan is where you're going to talk about how you're fulfilling performance measures requirement. I know that's tangential, but state plan is kind of connected. So just remember that section 16 is where you're really going to talk about how you're implementing performance measures over time. And so when you refer back to those checklists and the timelines, when you check off where you're at and self-assess where you're at, that's where you're going to report it, is in that section. And Lauren will probably hit on that a little bit more later. So the LIHEAP state plan is how we look at the problem, how we deal with it. Inputs talks about what are the resources that we use to deal with it, and of course you report that in your grantee survey. You also have outputs. So this is your grantee survey and your household report. What are we doing? And then you talk about outcomes. And outcomes, remember, aren't about what we're doing. It's how we're changing the households we serve. It's something more than an output. All of you have heard that before. And here we talk about household vulnerability targeting and the performance measures data form. These are where the performance measures come in. So how are we actually moving the dial for families? How are we changing their conditions? Not just how many households are we serving? And then impacts. This is where we begin to get a performance measure, like where are we having the most impact? And then take that information and use it back when you redesign your programs. Do you want this or do you want
So just briefly, we want to talk about kind of the performance management reports that are available through OLDC. So the LIHEAP state plan, of course, is on OLDC, and that's where you talk about your program design and how you implement your program. The performance data form has 2 sections, as we know. The first section is the grantee survey. And again, we're talking here about program inputs and outputs. And the data link for the performance data form grantee survey data for the LIHEAP performance management website is right there to the data warehouse. Similarly, the household report, again, we're talking about outputs and outcomes. What are you doing to help the households? What assistance are you providing them? And again, here's another data link for the data warehouse with household report data that's available to you. And the last is that the second part of the performance data form, the section on performance measures. Again, these are outcomes. What are you doing to reduce households' home energy burden? How are you impacting them in terms of restoring or preventing their loss of service? And once everyone reports data on that, we'll have a link in the slideshow for the data warehouse performance data. So now we're going to have 2 grantees come up and talk about the performance management reports that are available to you in the data warehouse. So with that, I'll turn over to Jane Blank and Jenny Sullivan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jane with the state of Wisconsin.
Jenny Sullivan, Montana.
And I'm a visual learner. I don't know about any of you, but so when I see output values, I get a little jazzed. I'm kind of a data dork that way anyway. So Jenny and I are part of a subcommittee of the Performance Measures Work Group who's been providing some guidance to the Apprise team as they've been developing some of these report outputs. The sad news is we haven't reported much performance measures data, so we don't have output and cool jazzy things to show you regarding performance measurement. That's coming. But what we will, and what we do have the ability to show you is some of the other data sources. So we'll show you some household report data, some grantee survey data, and then some of, it was on a previous slide, I think it was slide 79. It will show you some of the census data that'll be used with some of the reports. So this is actually, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this website, right? So this is the Performance Measures website that you're looking at here. Just a few days ago, actually, some of the work that we've been doing behind the scenes was released to you. So you will have this navigation too when you go back to your office. You might see a little bit limited compared to what you might see as myself logged in, just being on the Performance Measures workgroup, and because we're providing guidance, we have a little bit larger profile security level right now. But you hover over reports. You can either go straight to the guided search or the advanced search. I'm just going to click on reports, and you'll see the landing page, as it's called. And right here, so there's guided search. What is guided search? Guided search is just a way to say, okay, if you're not like a data dork like me and you don't really want to get into the woods and get really nitty gritty and detailed, we've pulled some report ideas together. And so you'll see, I'll show you that screen. Jenny will provide you with some examples of advanced search. So that's a little bit more, okay, this is really cool and jazzy, but I want to get even more into this. So that's what the advanced search. And it walks you through it, so it's still very intuitive. You don't have to be like a programmer like Jenny is in order to be able to use the advanced search. So we're designing it so that it still is user-friendly. So I'll go ahead and go into the guided search, and you have, on this landing page, you have 3 different options. You can either go to the national program reports, which is you see on the left side there. There's state comparison reports, and then there's single state reports. So there is, as it was mentioned earlier, because of the waiting for the report to Congress, 2010 data is really the extent to which you will have access to the data. And then hopefully soon, once that the report to Congress is completed, you'll be able to actually see some of the data up to 2014. I'm actually going to show you probably some 2014 data in a couple of these examples, just so you get an idea of what it looks like. And as you have that access to that information for your state. So pretty intuitive, access reports. So here's a list of some of the reports on the national perspective that we have spec'd out as to be included in the guided section. So I'm just going to select one for example. I'm kind of a pie chart kind of a person, so I selected this one. And so this is basically on a national scale, the use of program funds. Kind of busy pie, right? But it's also, you know, the key is very helpful, I think, on the side. You can also hover over, so I'm going to kind of show you this functionality. I'm not really going to get it a lot into the definition of the data. Just really kind of show you in the essence of time, just kind of go through and show you the functionality. So you can hover over. So even these little small slivers that you can't really tell, you can hover over and it'll expand it a little bit for you. There's also another feature that's built in for every report. There's grid information or data information down below. You can export that to Excel. I'm not going to simulate that either for you in the essence of time. And then there's another feature. I don't know if we call this an icon or what it's actually called, but if you click on that, it gives you an opportunity to print this or convert it to a different version, a different format. So it's a printer-friendly version. Also, for the essence of time, I'm not going to simulate that for you, but it's typically a little bit better than trying to print something off of a browser website. So in order to navigate, there's a couple of different ways that you can navigate to the page that I was on before. You can actually use the browser back button, so you could actually click on this. Or another function is you can just click right back on the reports menu, and it takes you back to the landing page. So 2 more reports that I'll show you. One state comparison report. So again, several reports that have been developed thus far. One I'm going to show you here is the uses of the LIHEAP program funds by state. It's a stacked bar. So one thing that I wanted to point out here is, as you see on the right side in that right box, the default, we programmed it so that it's the default based on your region from the HHS perspective. So this is like the default. So these are all the other partners in my area. I'm, for demonstration purposes, going to show you just Wisconsin and Minnesota, because John already said it was okay to show his data. And then you just hit the next button. And I'm actually going to change this to be 2010. And then you just click on View Report. And that's just stack bars. So it shows basically that Wisconsin for 2010 gave a lot more to weatherization or showed a lot more weatherization. We have a state statute that requires that we grant the weatherization program with 15% of all federal funds. So it's a state statute. We have no option. So, and Minnesota does not have that same statutorily required directive. So that might be why our green bar is larger than Minnesota's green bar. Again, some slivers that are very small, but if you hover over it, helps to explode it a little bit so it's a little bit more legible. Again, data down below, so you can see the output, so you can actually see the values in that manner as well. I'm just going to show you one more feature. I'm going to hit the back button for this, go back to the same report, and just show you that if I wanted to, I don't have to select only within my region. So I'm just going to pull Montana in. And so similarly, so it doesn't matter who you use for a comparison. We just thought it would be helpful for states if the default was, for the states within their region. So maybe there's a neighboring state. Maybe there's another state who operates their program similarly as you that you wanted to show a comparable. Okay, one last report I'll show you before we hand it over to Jenny. So this is a single state report. So this is going to be, and you can see there's quite a few more. So there's 23 more examples that we have spec'd out and developed for you as a single state to be able to analyze your data. And the report that I'm actually going to show you is an example of where we're using household report data as well as American Community Survey data or census data. And so it's the percent of federally eligible households that were served over a period of 10 years. I guess I can show you 10 years. It gets a little bit busy, but so it defaults to the 10 years. If you decided, no, I really only want to do 5 years, you can just deselect one of them or several of them. I find it to be very user-friendly. So we're right in the 20 to 30% range of the eligible population. That was not a surprise to me. I think you might find it interesting if you're not familiar, if you haven't used and looked at any of those data points. It might be interesting. It's unfortunate in some ways, but if you serve 100% of your population, what does that do for an average benefit, or how quickly do you run out of funds? So, it's a very good output value in order to measure, how you're running your program and what your objective is. So, I think we'll reserve questions until Jenny has an opportunity. So I'll take you back to the landing page, and there you go.
All right. Just because we called it advanced doesn't mean you need a degree in anything to be able to use these. They're very similar to the guided search that Jane just went through. You can click on the advanced here. We're already there, as you can see. Just scroll down. There's this cool little feature I'm going to show you first, which is this map. Click on Build Reports. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to get the average benefit here. Oops. You have to do a little more selection in the advanced search. It doesn't quite do it all for you, but it's not bad. I'm going to select everyone. I'm not going to go past 2010. Leon still has some years that he has to get approved for me. I currently have access to more, as does Jane, that you guys are seeing just because we're on the Data Dork committee and we're playing with this data all the time, making sure that it is accurate. This map is one of my favorite items here. Oops. So down here it does show all the data, as Jane pointed out earlier. I'm having a hard time with the mouse. I'm doing that now, yes. So up here, you can see as I highlight a state, this is the average amount of benefit that each state has. So Montana, 727 for 2010. North Dakota was 1,487. There's Minnesota's. We're picking on mostly Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Montana because we're all a part of this little Data Dorks group and have agreed to show you our data. Not everyone else has, so we're trying to stick with those that have agreed. All right. You can, that was just with a single field. You can do map only with one field. If you wanted to see other data in addition to the average, for instance, the assisted households, oops, I went a little too far. My map option went away. So let me show you a quick sample of a combo. I currently still have all the data selected. It's a little hard to read with all the states here. You can still hover and get all the data, but instead what I'm going to come up here and do, I'm going to clear all. It's quick and easy. I'm going to pick those 3 states we've been talking about here. If you notice, I have to click a few more fields than Jane was doing before, but not too bad. Combo. Now this actually gives us a double graph, kind of. So now we're seeing the average benefit, and then we're also seeing the total amount of applications that received a benefit for each of these states. So that number over here on the right goes to this line. This number here goes to the dollars over on the left. And I don't want to completely get into explaining the graph, but all this data is out here for you. Okay, one more. I'm just going to go through one more. We'd like you to come out here and play. This is all available to each of you out here on the LIHEAP Performance Measures site, but for your data only right now, and I believe only through 2010. But you can come out here and start using this and seeing some of the graphs that you have available to you. All right, I'm going to switch this. I'm going to clear all again. This time I'm just going to grab Montana. And I'm doing this partially because you only mostly have your data. And I'm going to select all years. On the combo. And then here is that same picture, but only for Montana and showing from every year across. So we can see that in 2009, our average benefit was 748 and 727 in 2010, just like we saw before. That's it for show and tell. Does anyone have any questions on this nice little wonderful tool? And we've just played. We didn't actually do all the work. We just kind of designed it and play with it. We get the fun part.
And Nick, there's also a resource available on the Performance Measures website. If you go out and play, and you're like, okay, this data doesn't make any sense, or you have my data completely wrong, right? I mean, so there's a resource out there that you can use to provide that input or that feedback to the Apprise team. So, and be patient, please. It's still under development, you know, so kind of cool stuff.
So it's always great to go right before lunch because I know where everybody's minds and thoughts are at right now. But I do want to give credit to the Processor Operations Committee, and I think we're fluctuating with what our identity is. But really, I'm from the land of Truman and Twain and the Mizzou Tigers. So M-I-Z if anybody's here. So anyway, that you would say Z-O-U if you were from the university. But anyway, what I want to get at is that, you know, a lot of times the quarterback and the receivers and all those people get a lot of glory for what's being done, but really it's the offensive line. And so I feel like the subgroup that I work on, we're the offensive line for the team. We're the ones working collaboratively and building upon each other and coming up with these ideas. So although I'm presenting this, I do want to give credit to my other committee members, which include Linnell Westbrook from Indiana, Carrie Crichton from Oklahoma, Sherry Shepard from Montana, Jennifer Lee from Alabama, who's over here, and Shirley Mason on the Communications Committee, who also attends a lot of our conference calls. They're our offensive line on all of this, and so I want to give them credit for that. I also want to give credit to Melissa, John, who's developed this, Apprise, and everybody who's been a part of it. But let's dive in, because I know I'm what's between you and lunch. I get it. So, this is LIHEAP self-assessment tool, and as a new director, I've been doing LIHEAP for about 9 years, but as a new director, people were always talking about me, and if you were here yesterday, you're probably going, what? And I go, well, where do I go to get these resources, or how do I know where I'm at, or is there some kind of self-assessment tool I can take, go one place, get all the resources I need, bring it back and be able to read it and tailor it to what I'm looking for. So I know this is difficult to read. I am going to go through this, and then I'm going to demo it a little bit, and I promise I won't take too much of your time. I hope you're as excited about this as we've been excited in helping develop it. But just as Jane pointed out, this is under development, so it's still being worked on, and we're still tweaking it, we're still adding resources, and we're still looking for input and ideas. And although we are serving on the Performance Measurement Implementation Work Group, I really want to encourage all states to contact us and give us your ideas, because there's nothing like a fresh perspective on something, especially from new directors, that says, hey, this was helpful, or hey, this doesn't make sense to me. Because that's what helps us inform each other, because working together, we can do so much more than working apart from each other. So we've developed this self-assessment tool. It allows you to locate your resources that you need based on your needs. So so you're going to see this, what are we calling it, the bubble chart? But in the center of this, I'm going to step over. Does everybody hear me okay? Because I'm a loudspeaker. In the center is LIHEAP, and then you have bubbles around here, okay? So we're calling this a bubble graph. And so we've got it broken down to the general areas you as LIHEAP program manager will need, including performance measurements, of course, or performance management. Thank you. We've got it broken down. We've got performance management up here, which is what this session is about. But in addition to that, performance management, when we get into that process, informs our entire program and how we do it, too. But isn't program integrity important? And how do data systems work into that, right? And then we come around and we say, well, how do I do sub-grantee and contracts? Not only for performance measurement, but for LIHEAP in general. What about sub-grantee stakeholder training? So some people say, well, what's a stakeholder? Well, that's talking to your vendors or your stakeholders or who you have as sub-grantees. And then vendor relationships, critically important. And then we've got grantee training, which we're all attending today. Thank goodness. This is so valuable and so helpful. And then what do we do with our vendor agreements? And of course, what's very important to our program, but program integrity, after the government accounting report in 2009 and the program integrity work group recommendations. So some people have been asking about these topics and saying, where can I go to get the information? Where can I get this? Where can I, click on, or what website? Heather, can you give me a website to go to that I can even get started, especially if I'm a new director? So I'm going to show you how this operates. You're going to pick what you think you need information about. So I'm going to pick, you want me to start on performance measure? Yeah. Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate your assistance. So what you're going to see bring up when I do performance measurements is you're going to see a list of questions over on the side. I have no idea what performance measurements is. That's okay. We all started there, and every time we start there, and every time we come to one of these meetings, someone's even walked up to me. I just learned again now what this is again. So I'm confused about performance measurement, which are voluntary. You know, you go down and you select where you're at in that. So if you're a new director and you have no idea what performance measurements are, and you say, well, I'm going to go ahead and expand that, and then it's going to give you some resources. It's going to say, I want to get the LIHEAP Regional Training Measurement slide on performance measurements. And what's going to happen is when you click on that, what do you see happen at the top of the screen? I have a toolbox. I'm going to fill that toolbox with the resources I need. Maybe this is where I need to start. And then I'm going to have the option of downloading all those tools all at once so that I have it where I need it and it's customized to where I'm at as a LIHEAP director. If I'm an advanced director and I know what's going on, I may just want to peruse and say, hey, I'm updating my vendor agreement. Maybe I want to go back and check on things. So if I were to go over and click on another bubble, Melissa. Again, it's already been added to my toolbox, what I had there. It's keeping it there. It's kind of almost like a shopping cart, is what we call it. We want to call it a toolbox because it's your training tools. I need to get the GAO report. I'm in Ohio. I need the government accounting report on program integrity issues. Well, I'm just going to go out there and click on that, and I'm going to say I need that. And then when I get done, and you can do this on every bubble, and you can go around and you can select. I, like Jane, I'm a visual person. I want a landing page that gives me my entire program that I can see at one time, but that I can click through menu items. I can select what I need or what I want to look at, build my own toolbox. And then I can go ahead at this point, and I think it's, you know, I could go through all these bubbles, and we're still, like I said, developing this website. There's going to be some bubbles you pick that there may be a gap there that we may need to identify as a training need and develop training material for, or you may have resources at your state as a best practice that we would love to see shared so that other grantees can say, hey, I don't have to rethink this process. You know, Jennifer Lee down in Alabama has already got this worked out. Let me call Jennifer, you know, or let me see what Jennifer did, and then let me give her a call because now I have an understanding, at least looking at what she's done. So once I do that and I get my toolbox together, then I can just click on download of all these files. And now all of those are downloading onto my computer, and I can go back and review it at my leisure if I want to. Okay? So this was really a way, not only from the performance measurement, but from program integrity and for all the things that we do, to create a way for you to take a self-assessment, to select the areas that you want assistance on, and to be hooked up to those resources. Because I don't know about you, have you ever been out the web looking for something you just saw the other day and you can't find it? And I'm not a Google person. I don't Google right off the bat. So I was looking and trying to find something on, I believe it was program integrity in a sense. I'm like, where is that one thing I was looking for, that report or the outcomes or something? Well, this is a way to organize, and it's a resource, but also gives you an assessment of yourself. You can pick and choose what you need in a very visual way, and you can go ahead and download that and get the information you need depending on where you're at in your state, or if you're given a special assignment to do a program integrity manual in about a month, right? So, is there anything else I need to demo for you, Melissa?
No, I think talking though about the connection in each of the categories to performance measurement is good though.
Okay, so you go. I mean, I want to open up too to all the members that helped develop this, because certainly they had input on this. But if you've got other additional comments, I wanted to demo it for you guys because I think it's a really exciting tool and it'll be really helpful for everybody.
So what I wanted to point out, that Heather was at the very beginning of this project before we kind of expanded it. Heather and her peers were really found it important to tie performance measurement into each piece. Remember, we talked about when you implement performance measures, it's not just about adding some data. You're touching several parts of your program. So at the end of each bubble, so for example, in program integrity, we talk about two different things. I'd like to learn about how I can use performance measure data to increase program integrity. We also talk about if I'm updating my IT systems to collect and report performance measure data, I learned about how I can make simultaneous updates to look at program integrity. So It's that way in every bubble. You'll find connections between that bubble and performance measurement because performance measurement is so awesome.
It's so important.
So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, Melissa. And it really is important. Anytime you expand and collapse, you can see where that's going to, and you see pending. I pressed the pending, which is good because you may see this because it's still under, we're still developing it. But it's really important. How does program integrity as well as performance management or performance measurements inform my whole program? So I collect the data. I think you said something really important that's worth repeating is, so performance measurement's collecting the data. So now, so what? I've got the data. What do I do with it? Because if you don't have the so what, why are you going through this to get all the work? Well, let's see what the data shows us, and then let's do performance management to make our programs better to serve the people that we're here to serve. So managing, collecting the data is one thing, but then managing your program using that information, and how does that, kind of touch all those other bubbles as far as, talking to your stakeholders and talking to your data systems and all of that. So it's not just focused on there. And anybody who's been through a systems conversion, if you raise your hand, show me if you've been through this painful experience. When you make a change, you want to do it all at once, right? Because after you do a new system, what are you going to get? What is going to be your, what are they going to tell you? That's going to cost more. I can't do it. This is the reason that can't be done. Why wasn't that in the original specifications, right? So if you're going to go in and you're going to do it, get everything you can at one time. Just my suggestion, okay? So I hope this is going to be a great tool. Again, it's the operation process subcommittee, the offensive line, trying to make really you guys, the quarterbacks and the receivers and the people out there doing this work, make your job easier, find the resources you need, get the training you need, and please contact any of us on the performance measurement website or go through your peer-to-peer contact because we're here to help you. We really want to help you figure this out.
So that was way more exciting than our slides. What I think the ultimate point, so I'm going to be honest that we had additional slides to talk about the measures and what each of them meant. And this was really a review. Oh, thanks. This is really a review from last year. I know some of you have seen it and some of you haven't. These slides are going to be available, and if you want, I'm happy, Nick or I are happy to get on the phone and talk with them about, with you individually or with your staff. So we'll give you an individualized webinar on these particular end slides if you're interested. But these are things we went over last year. And what it gets at and what both the committees talked about today were this thing between measures and management, right? How do you use what, we've talked about what you're collecting all morning and all this work you're going to do. It does, you are going to be able to sow what you reap, right? Reap what you sow. It's the end of the day. I think that the idea is that at the end of the day, you'll have data to use. And what the Performance Measures Work Group has just shown you is that there are different ways to use it. You have resources in every area that'll show you how to use it, and you have that amazing data warehouse that already has existing data in that you should all be experimenting with. And the more data you collect, the bigger, broader, more robust story you're going to be able to tell about your program and why it's important. So all of these are here. I'm going to let you look through them on your own time. Once again, we'll do individual webinars for people that would like to dive into this again, what the difference between the measures are and how you can use them. But I think Leon is right that next year, once you all get past the hurdle of collecting data and starting to report it, we're going to help you be one step ahead with how to use it. And with those data warehouse and self-assessment tools in place, that'll be a much easier process. Before we end, I want to acknowledge who I think is definitely two of the quarterbacks in the Performance Measures Work Group. Susan is sitting back there in the back, and Shirley as well. They're both on the Communications Committee. They don't have these cool tools to show us today, but what you all get to see from them are those newsletters that come out that highlight what grantees are doing, best practices, links to these resources, updates on these resources, updates about what the requirements are saying or what grantees are learning. And so if you're not already on that list, you need to talk to Susan, the lady in red. Her work and Shirley's work on those newsletters are fantastic. I can't say enough about them if you haven't seen them. So I just encourage you. Susan. Susan is in the very back from Alaska. And Shirley up here, Arkansas. And so they've done a lot of work as well, and I want to make sure that they're acknowledged. So that's the end of our presentation. We could go another half an hour, but we're not going to. So if I think I had anything, I think I'm moving backwards. I think what I would say is that we're accessible, available. If you need to get a hold of us, you can contact Apprise directly, your OCS liaison, or go through the Performance Measures website and click Help. There are multiple ways, short of a bat signal, to get a hold of us. So, do you have anything you want to? There's a lot more we could add, but if there. Nick will be available tomorrow to take your abuse and questions about this. He'll be here, and so if you'd like to talk with him one-on-one, you might want to corner him and nail down a time, but I think he's also just going to be available and around to answer group questions. It's still in production, but I imagine it'll be available. They're going to put it out before all the resources are populated because we want you to suggest or contribute resources. So I don't think it'll be very long before it's out to all of you. That'll be something that would come from Susan and from the work group. We'll put out an email blast or a newsletter that says when it's ready and give you the link. Really appreciated your time and look forward to more of your questions. Thanks for having us today.